with Andrea from Aura Creative Agency. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Really excited to be here. It was actually your brilliant idea to put this on, and this is awesome. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So, as a young entrepreneur, when was the moment in your career that you wanted to create your own company?
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, I've always wanted to be a business owner. I didn't know what exactly that was going to look like when I was younger, but I knew that I wanted to be my own boss. I knew that I wanted to do my own thing. I just, sort of loved the idea of being able to have autonomy and build something that I could be really proud of. But the idea to work in PR or like any creative industry came much later on. I have a degree in journalism. So what a lot of people don't know is that I actually left Ryerson. I went to Central St. Martin's for a semester, and it's a fashion school based in London. And I really, really, really wanted to be a fashion journalist. It was like my dream to work for Vogue. I loved it. And then when I got there, naturally, things changed. And that's not to say the experience wasn't amazing. It was, but I actually ended up working for a really famous fashion designer in London on their PR team. And by PR team, I mean like me and 3 other interns. And I loved it. I loved the pace of it. I loved, how you have to problem solve, how you have to just throw yourself into things. I loved being at Fashion Week. The whole production of it all was really interesting to me. And then the best part about it for me was that the next day it was like, you're on to the next collection. You're moving on. It's about the next project that you need to work on. And that's what I love about what I do now, is that it's always on to the next thing. So that was what I was immediately drawn to. But then after I came back, I worked for Vice actually, and then I worked at several agencies, and I realized that a lot of the companies that I wanted to work with personally, I couldn't work with at agencies because agencies are super expensive. Like the retainer for an agency, a large one, is crazy for companies that are pre-seed or that are startups or that are, just local businesses. And that was really what I wanted to set out to do, was just to work with really cool people, work with really cool brands, and sort of fill a little bit of a gap that I feel like wasn't being addressed. And that's how it got started. So basically just from freelancing, I naturally
so exciting.
This, yeah.
I learned something new today because I did not know that you went to London and, was in fashion and Fashion Week. That must have been a super cool experience.
It was really cool. And it gave me a lot of really interesting experiences. Like I'll never forget, it was like 3 a.m. in the morning and they were like, do you sew? And I was like, no, like I haven't ever taken a sewing class, but I ended up having to help them hand sew garments the night before Fashion Week. So that's why when people come to me and they're like, I don't know how to do this, I'm like, you do. You
figure
just
it out.
need to figure it out.
Yeah.
I've been there, I get it. But yeah, and then honestly, I loved it from there, so.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, and I think that experience, I even, my background too, coming from another company, and, it's such good experience because you learn all the amazing things that they do and everything you want to be.
Yeah.
But then there's some things that maybe, everyone's different, so you would do differently. And I think from starting a company that's really, at least I can speak for myself, is, these are all the things that I loved and that I think are so great, but there's quite a few things that I just want to do differently. And I want that challenge. And I want to be able, exactly what you said, is to be able to, if I flop, it's my own doing.
Yeah.
And if I succeed, it's my own doing, right? And being able to, sit back and say, it's the people I put in place and the team we put together and the work that we've done that have gotten us here. And I think it's such a rewarding experience. Or even, hiring, like you're in the process, you've hired new people, I've hired new team members. It's an amazing feeling.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's interesting to see, like, when you look back, the trajectory of how things have happened and how, in hindsight, so much has changed, but when you're in the day-to-day of doing things, you feel like nothing is. But truly, it's like you can do anything. Like, you just got to give yourself the time, and you also have to just learn from the things that you didn't like at previous jobs or from previous people that were, in leadership roles above you, and say, okay, this wasn't working here, but it was such a big system, so for me to go out and change it wasn't going to happen. But now that this is my own company and I'm my own boss and I'm in charge of leading a team. How can I not make those same mistakes?
So true.
Right? Like you just have to be the person that you wanted other people to be for you, or that other people were for
And
you.
listen, we're not perfect. I'm sure I still make mistakes every single day.
Me
I
too.
mean, we're human.
Every minute. I'm always making mistakes. It's okay.
But it is like, that's how you learn, right? And that's how you grow as a company, and that's how you grow with your team as well.
For sure.
So it's super exciting. So, speaking of that, what would you say has been the biggest challenge since starting Aura?
Oh, the biggest challenge for sure. There's been many, but honestly, the biggest challenge is definitely my age, for sure. I think that because I'm young, sometimes it works to my detriment in a way, because I think that even though I have a tons of experience, people don't always see that, or if they do, they are kind of like, I'd rather go with a bigger firm, which is totally fine. It's a matter of preference, but I think that like a major challenge for me is just getting people to believe in me. I know that when I get the job, I'll work my butt off to make sure that, it goes smoothly and that people are happy, but not everyone's willing to take a chance on young entrepreneurs, and that's okay. But I really cherish the people that have, for sure.
Yeah, and I think, listen, I can speak to that experience as well, because even when I started in this industry, I was 22 years old. I was extremely young, and I was sitting, by the time I was 25, I was sitting at a table running development projects with all, men and women who were averaging probably 50 plus or 40 plus at least. So I completely get it. And you're not only are you trying to prove yourself to, these senior people that you know what you're doing, but you're also trying to prove because of your age.
Yeah.
So it's funny because I used to hate when people asked me how old I was. And it really honestly didn't actually come up that often, but the few times it would come up, I'd always get so awkward about it because I hated talking about it. And then, I would drop, oh, I'm 26 or oh, I'm 27. Even now I'll say, oh, I'm 33, and like jaws drop. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, but it actually says something if you don't talk about it, because it just shows that, you're confident in what you do, then people are confident with you, right?
Yeah.
And I think for me, that was a huge challenge. So I completely get it. It's very big challenge, but I also think it's very rewarding when you're challenged in that sense, and you see, and you can sit back and say, like, you've started Aura. Look at what you've done, even since I've known you, which has been just over a year now. I mean, look at how much your company has grown, right? And
sure.
There's been challenges. I mean, we've been in the middle of a pandemic. I think everyone's been challenged by the pandemic.
Yeah.
But to be able to say, even at such a young age that, you've been able to grow your company. And I think it goes back to this, and Jordan and I had talked about this. I was just with All True Developments, and we always say is that it's because you care.
Yeah, for sure.
You put everything into it. And I think that's what makes the difference. And it's that you care about, what you do. You care about what you're doing for your clients, and you almost take their business as if it were your own.
Yeah, for sure. And that's sort of why too, I like that we're boutique, and I like that we're small, and I like that we are selective with the people that we work with and that the projects we take on, because at the end of the day, like a common thing that I noticed working at other places was just the lack of, I don't want to say the lack of care, but just you're running a massive operation. They're one of 1,000 things you're working on. Yeah. But I think to be able to be small, which has been, by way of having a new company, getting clients slowly and whatever, it's that the people that we do work with, they really feel like we're part of their team. And that's how I want everyone to feel when they stop working with us or when a project ends. Like, I was able to call Andrea at 9:00 at night with a problem, and she answered and she got it done. So like true. That to me is the most important thing. And so, when people pass us up for a bigger firm or anything like that, or somebody that has more experience, I just know that it might not be this time, but eventually I think it'll happen. Yeah. When they're comfortable and when we've proven ourselves a little bit more, I think that, some of those relationships will come to fruition. So for sure. It's not a race. It's about the long game,
No, and I always say quality over quantity, right?
100%.
It's about working with people who are like-minded and who, listen, again, we all have our bad days, we all have our good days, but to work with people who respect you equally as you respect them, who appreciate the work you do for them, and who appreciate, you. I think that's always been a really big thing for me, because I think it makes such a big difference in working for someone. It's not just about money for a lot of people. It's, if you know that someone truly appreciates what you do, you're going to work that much harder.
100%. And it's also too, like, and this is where, like, even when I'm finding, like, hiring staff, like, I really, I don't want to say get attached to people, but I become friends with them. Like you and I are friends.
Yeah.
And so I want you to succeed just as much as I want myself to succeed or the next person. Like you are my friend first and I want Hirsch and Associates to do well. And so for me, it's not about the money of the retainer every month or whatever. It's about like, okay, Karen needs me to do her a solid or we need to get this done for them. Yeah. Like, let's just get it done, right?
And I always say that it's like, you don't want to climb the ladder of success without other people climbing it with you.
100%.
I've never understood wanting to be successful and not wanting everyone else around you to be successful. I think it's so important because those other people that everyone you keep around is someone that in some way, sense or form, they become a part of you. Like, if you have negative energy around you all the time, you're going to become somewhat negative. Keeping positive people around you, keeping people who want to see you succeed and aren't behind the scenes hoping that you fail, those are the people that are going to help you continue to grow. Yeah. And all you should want is for them to grow as well, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes us work so well together is, like you said, is equally as much as you want my company to succeed, I want your company to succeed. And, we're here, we problem solve. Sometimes we talk about things that have nothing to do with our work, but it's, how can we help each other? And I think that's what's so important. And it's not a lot of people in the business that I've found thus far that you can have that synergy with, which I think is so important.
Because I think that like people think it's one or the other. Like you can either be super kind and maybe that's like comes off as a sign of weakness in a way. Like, I don't know. I feel like sometimes people think it's one or the other. You can't be friends and do business, or you can't be kind and be a good boss, or you know what I mean? Like they're not.
You just have to be able to balance it. And I think that's the biggest challenge is being able to put business first, like be able to, detach from the friendship and know that business is business and friendship is friendship. And a lot of people struggle with that because it is quite a balance. But I think too is just, for me, for example, when you work in this industry and you see all the same people all the same time, you're going to become friends with them. I mean, it's ultimately what's going to happen. But to be able to say, okay, like this is my problem and be honest with you and not be, hoping that I don't offend our friendship or vice versa with you, with me. I think that's so important. And it's challenging.
Yeah.
And it's all about balance, right? And I think it's something that I'm always continuously working on because I think it's so important. And I think when you become friends, when you get close with someone, they're going to care about your business and you succeeding so much more.
Yeah.
Than just, you writing a check to them, for example.
Yeah. And it's always like that saying, would they mention your name in a room? Yeah. That's what I think about often, right? Yeah. And if I would mention someone else's name in a room, or if they would do the same thing for me, that's how I know that they're, genuine for my best interest and I'm for theirs as well, Yeah. So, because I think sometimes a lot of people like, they might not, right?
Yeah.
So
no, that's true.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, what would you say motivates you?
I am so lucky that every day I get to work with people in a variety of different industries, and I get to work with people that are in tech, healthcare, real estate, literally the widest variety. And what's so cool and what's so motivating about my job is that I'm around people that want to innovate. They want to change the way that things are done. They want to have people experience things better. They want to, change people's lives. They want to change the world. Like that to me is the most motivating thing. I get off some calls sometimes and I'm just like, whoa, like the fact that they're doing that and in some small way I'm helping them achieve that goal, right? And I'm sort of, part of their team in a small way, that really, really motivates me for sure. And then also too, just, because I have a company that hasn't been around for a long time, I want to build a big business. I want to be able to work with all of my dream clients. So motivates me as well. Yeah.
And I think that says a lot because for a lot of people, and I'm sure, we've been talking about hiring staff and interviewing and, you see all different types of personalities. And I think a lot of people, they want to be at the top right away. They want to come in and they expect a certain thing, but you have to grind it out to get there.
Yeah.
Right? And like to be able, and I don't think you'll appreciate it the same way if you don't grind it out to get there because now you're starting your company, you started from nothing. You've built this, you're building it now, you're building an empire and you're going to get to eventually, I know you will get to where you want to be and the clients you want to have, but you're going to be able to sit back and say like, it's all that hard work and those sleepless nights and those 15-hour, 20-hour days that you put in that got you there.
Yeah.
It wasn't just handed to you. And I think there's going to be a different appreciation for that versus when people think, it's just something that you don't have to really work towards. It's not the same feeling.
And the thing is too, is like, I think as a leader, like exactly what, we've talked about in the past, like if you're not prepared to do the little things, you cannot expect other people to want to do them. And I think now there's this like glamorization of being an entrepreneur. There definitely is. I've seen, so many people started businesses in COVID. I've seen so many influencers on Instagram that talk about owning a business and their, 4-day work weeks or whatever it is. And it's like, when you're starting a business, like I don't think people understand that you are your own intern, you are your own assistant, you are your own accountant, you do absolutely everything. Like you cannot operate a business without being able to, or at least wanting to, because you want to succeed, to wear the hats of a lot of people, especially at the beginning, because you can't hire all those jobs.
I always joke. My go-to line is start a business. They said it's wonderful. They said
we always say that
because listen, it is amazing. It's so rewarding.
For sure.
I'm a person that likes to be challenged, so I can't imagine not doing it. But some days you sit down and you just scratch your head and you're like and then you get these, you interview or you talk to people and they're like, oh yeah. Well, it's easy for you. It's like, if it's easy for me, like it's more work. It is way more work than it was before, but it's rewarding work because everything you're putting into it, that what's developing and what's becoming of it is because of that effort that you put in. But
for sure.
It's definitely not as luxurious as ever. I talk about this with real estate too. Do you know how many people go into real estate being, realtors make so much money, I want to make money? I have no idea. If you're going into real estate, first you have to have a lot of savings because there's going to be a huge overhead of cost that you're not making back right away. And this is always a conversation I have with people who are thinking about getting into real estate is I always say it's not as glamorous as it looks. It's not as easy as it looks. And there's a lot of work, a lot of time that's put into it, and a lot of money in the beginning that you have to front. And it's the same as a business, because essentially being a realtor, it is your own business. You're building your business, right? You're building your brand. And people they don't see that side of it. They think it's just, it's easy, I'll start my own business, or I'll go into real estate and I'll make all this money and it'll be wonderful.
Or like, the one that makes me laugh the most is like, oh, but you could take time off. You own a business. And it's like,
there's no such thing.
Like, there's literally
no such thing.
No such thing. The moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed, doesn't matter what day it is, I'm always on. And that's what like people really don't understand is that you give up a sense of freedom in a way where you don't clock out at 5. If you clock out at 5, like I want to meet you because it's very difficult.
But the ones that listen, eventually I'm sure you can get there. When you build your empire and you put certain strategies in place, you can definitely get there. But it doesn't come right away. And it's, even before I started my own company, that was just always who I am. I don't know how to not work. It's a part of me. I traveled all around the world. I traveled to Asia and I was critiquing floor plans on the flight from Bali to Thailand.
Yeah.
Like, that's just who I am. And I didn't have to at the time, but I just don't know how to turn off. So I think it was kind of a progression. It made sense for me to start my own company because that's just, that's something that I don't know how to turn off. And it is something that I've tried to work on to have a little bit more of me time because I think it is extremely important. And that balance is so difficult to achieve. But it's definitely not as glamorous as everyone has it out to be on Instagram and Facebook.
No.
And these ads.
Yeah, the LinkedIn influencers are the best. Yeah.
Speaking of that, knowing Aura takes on a variety of different clients, what would you say is your favorite part about being a creative agency in the real estate development world?
I have always had a love of real estate. My father is an avid real estate investor. He's always sort of like drilled it into me to get into real estate. I think his dream was for me to be an agent or whatever, but it's been around me for a very long time. And so naturally for me, when you're a kid and sometimes you go to showings and you like look around and you're like, oh my God, I imagine this being my bedroom or this being the kitchen, right? And I think the sentiment of homeowning for me is a beautiful thing. And that's why I really love it. And I think to work with people that want to like change a city skyline, improve a neighborhood, redevelop an area so that it better services a community. Like that's really, really empowering, inspirational things. Like, and I love the people that I work with now because they're very much about thoughtful city building, like having every single thing be ultra considered. Nothing goes out the door without it being, thought about or, redesigned 100 different times to make sure that this was right. So for me, it's like, working with people that believe in that is really, really cool. So just to see things come to fruition too.
It's so funny that you talk about that because many people, and some people don't know, is that I was born and raised into it. So my dad did real estate and, going into open houses, I was actually the one that would greet you at the door. And I was always, told from a young age, invest in real estate. It's the best way to make money long term. But being in the open house, I would tour people. And I always said that's funny because now that I'm older, I know my dad did this on purpose because people would walk in and it's, this cute kid walking them through. So you feel a lot more at ease. Mm-hmm. Walk them through the house. This is a fantastic house. You should let me take you to the master bedroom and give them a tour. And then the second bedroom was always the closing office. Mm-hmm. So then you walk them through, this is the second bedroom. Oh, that happens to be the office. This is Gary Hirsch. And then, that's how you would close them. Yeah. And it's funny because, as a young kid, I used to not only work there and think about, but I would always play house. Like this was my house. So I'd have friends, that would come meet me and I'd say, let's come into my kitchen. Let me make you a drink or let me make you muffins or, mm-hmm. and I would play this make believe, but that was really what drove me. I always wanted those things. Right. So it's funny how we do things when we're younger. We don't really realize how much they're going to impact us as we get older.
For sure. I mean, even now, the same, thing sort of rings true. Like when I, sometimes my boyfriend and I will go look for houses and stuff like that. And you walk through a beautiful home and you picture yourself there, right? And that inspiration and, that feeling of at the end of the day, you're selling a lifestyle, right? Like somebody has to live here. They're probably going to grow a family here. Or maybe this is just a stop that they're going to take on their journey. But either way, it's an important move for them. And so, I'm always sort of fascinated by things that are going on in the industry. There's a lot of amazing projects that are coming up. There's, the skyline is constantly changing. There's constantly things growing and building. And now there's tons of developments coming outside of the city and those places are really going to change. And we're going to be able to see how that has happened. So it's fascinating.
And as a creative agency, you're so involved in that aspect because really you're helping that, developer client, let's say that you've been hired by, to relay that vision that they have for their project, whether it be from the marketing of the brochure to, the PR angle to everything, mm-hmm. You're so heavily involved in that. And I think that's very rewarding in the sense because you'll be able to look back and see these buildings and see these areas and say, I was a part of that change. I was a part of that growth.
For sure. Absolutely. And I think just from a marketing aspect to be able to connect with people where they can say, okay, I actually, because of this vision now, it all comes together at the end, the building, the marketing and whatever. Because of this whole overarching vision, I see myself here, right? That's a really incredible thing to be a part of, for sure.
So speaking of that, I mean, what piece of advice would you give a young entrepreneur?
I think there's two things. So one, even though it's so cliche, I can't even believe I'm saying this right now, is don't give up. I know it is everybody says that, but truly I think people give up too early. Even when you're just in the day-to-day of a job, right? It's you're I tried to find this, but I can't find it. And it's but did you check here, 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 and here, right? Just don't give up. And when you're running a business, it's the same thing. You're gonna get 1,000 no's. You have to be okay with that. I got rejected I don't even know how many times before I got one yes. So,
and that's how it builds character too, right?
Yeah.
It totally builds your character as a company and builds your strength. And then it's that client who gives you that opportunity that you're forever going to be grateful for because they really got you into the market.
Yeah, exactly. And then another thing I would say too is just know who you are and know that you might not be for everyone and be okay with that, right? So that's why people, especially let's say we're talking about agencies, people specialize, right? And people, develop certain expertise or perhaps they stay boutique and perhaps they grow larger, right? You might not be for every client and that is okay. And that's not a testament of your worth. It's not a testament of your skills. You might get no's, you might get yeses, but you're gonna be for certain people, for certain projects. and you might not be the same way for others, and that's totally okay.
It's true. And then I think that also just helps you find the right clients that you really vibe with, right? Which is so important as well.
And then just nurture those relationships and, keep going, right? So you don't have to get everyone, and that is just fine. Yeah.
So speaking of that, what inspires you in your day-to-day?
I'm inspired by a lot of things, I think. Like, I'm inspired by people. I'm inspired by their stories. When I'm like conceiving of a new brand, like I look at so many different things, from like, travel inspiration to things I read to people I've met. Like, I think inspiration is everywhere. You just have to open your eyes to it and be receptive to it, because truly, like, to be inspired and to live an inspired life, you just have to be open to things, and you just have to, open your mind. And I also think too, like in a creative space, like to allow yourself inspiration, sometimes you just need to take a break. People talk about that all the time, like creative block, writer's block, right? It's just like taking a step back and just allowing yourself to remember why it is that you started, what it is that actually you're trying to accomplish, and then inspiration comes.
It's so true. And I think like for me at least, is inspiration comes every day. It comes from when we figure out we have a problem, and we figure out the problem and we have a solution to it and we succeed on it, or we launch a development project and it does extremely well, and we have something to motivate us. Or vice versa, we launch a project or we launch an incentive, it doesn't do as well as we hope, and we have to kind of revert back to the drawing board of what are we going to do differently. And that inspiration of kind of working hard and never giving up, I think for me has been such a big driver in my career.
Totally. Yeah, you just honestly, like, you just cannot, you can't give up. And even when things happen that maybe might be negative, take it as a way to just do better next time, right? Like, I always find when I'm working with people that are more senior than me, I'm like, damn, like, she said something today that was so true. Like, I'm inspired by that. Next time I do this, I'm going to do this differently because it worked, or,
Or allow yourself to learn from others, right? That's so important, is, what did they do, and what did they do that was that was so brilliant, exactly what you said, what they said. I'm definitely going to take that into consideration, and really, watch the crowd. That's what I say, is really watch the crowd and understand who's around you and what people are doing that they're doing properly, or maybe that you feel they're doing wrong that you can do differently.
Yeah, no, totally. You nailed that one for sure.
Finally, my signature question. If you could have champagne with anyone, who would it be and why?
Ooh, there would be so many people, but one person that really sticks out to me is Kirsten Green. She is the managing partner and founder of Forerunner Ventures, and she has backed some of the world's biggest brands, like for early stage investments, like Glossier, Away Luggage, Warby Parker. She's just the pinnacle of like success to me. Like, she's incredible. And Silicon Valley is, for those people that maybe don't know, is a massive boys club. There's so many men in that industry, and she just is absolutely incredible at what she does, and she's really changing the game. So I would love to sit down with her and just pick her brain on how she got there.
That's awesome. Yeah, it'd be exciting.
Yeah, she's awesome. Yeah.
Super exciting. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
We actually have something small for you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. You guys are too much.
So this is, and the dog wants to be a part of it as well.
Let's see, I love gifts.
So in true Cara fashion and Hirsch & Associates fashion, we had a bottle of Veuve and champagne flutes for you.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful.
Thank you for helping put this together, first and foremost.
Oh my gosh, anything for you.
A big one with you, and it's been an absolute pleasure working with you, and to continue working with you and be friends with you and learn from you. And I cannot say enough how grateful I am to have you in my life and in a part of this stage of my career.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Honestly, and for those people that don't know, you were one of the first people ever to hire me. So I am forever indebted to you. You were such a mentor to me as well. Seriously, like really, really, really.
Thank you.
Helped me so much. So
no, and listen, I saw something. You are so much like me in the sense of working hard and wanting to succeed and putting like blood, sweat, and tears into it. And there really isn't a lot of people like that nowadays. So I think it's so important to, when you see see those people, when you recognize those people, to keep them close because they're only going to make you a better person.
For sure. And thank you.
Thank you.
Ooh, guys, look at this. Pull this out. Ooh. I'm never going to open this. This is going to sit.
It goes bad champagne eventually, so you have to drink it. Don't waste a good bub.
But it's so beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.